You read the title, and it's true. Somewhat. Not all lobbies have 10-year-olds screaming someone sus at the top of their lungs.
I'm the one who was brown, so I changed my color because was my favorite.
And most social interactions you have in the game are second to none.
Hey, look, we're gonna have to be friends, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you, because you make me nervous. Look, we're gonna stick together, bro.
However, Among Us VR has some significant problems that make it more of an early access title than a full release. Playing the game itself, I have to admit, is really fun. It's all you loved about the first game, but in VR. The main issue is the missing content, and as this Steam review puts it, it's basically just the minimum possible Among Us VR experience. There's no cams, there's missing tasks, one map, no hands in normal play, no lobby settings, etc. You should probably just play the VR chat version, it's free. The VR chat version of the game not only has been out for longer, but also has more content. There's better interactions, and overall is more fun to play for longer periods of time. There's still the age requirement issue in VR chat too, but the population of younger players is much less dense comparatively. One of Among Us VR's developers actually also responded to the Steam review, saying, "We're already working on adding new content and features, and we'll share our 1-year roadmap soon. We are tracking which features players want most, so we hope you'll keep playing and please stay tuned for more updates." So why not release the game as early access? You don't want people to hope they'll keep playing the game. You want them to have enough content to where they're going to keep playing the game. Party Wumpus on Steam responds with an edit claiming, "If that's what it sounds like it is, then this game may not well be a viable product for at least a year. I cannot believe we let game companies get away with releasing half-baked games and then fixing them later. I'll hold out some hope that most of the important fixes are sooner rather than later, but they really should have just released the product later in development or labeled it as early access," which is the point I've been trying to come across as well. He has some solid points, and there's even more issues with the game. A large majority of lobbies lag so bad they can't even start. There's no host migration. You just have to re-queue after a host leaves. And quite frankly, their use of VR technology and interactions within the game are straight out of 2017. There are so many mechanics in the game that have been solved for years now. You can practically use a UI pointer for every interaction in the game. Like, what's even the point of having full 3D space tracked 6 degrees of freedom controllers when your hands disappear in the actual match? This might have been a feature, but in my opinion is a massive step backwards. Why create a VR game with the only expressive movement in your characters being the head and the hands, and then removing a vital part of that in the most important of times? I could rant on and on about how they merely made a cute, visually appealing little Among Us port, but this should not be a port, it should be its own title game. So with all my gripes, I hopped into Unity to see just how long it would take to create better interactions than Among Us VR currently has with their tasks. I set out to make a fully physics-based interaction between the hand pump and the buttons. Now keep in mind, these interactions, at least with the hands, are client-side, so you can go all out with the physics so long as you were to sync the transforms of the task object. And it isn't hard to do, and they have all the power in the world to make it better, especially with the funding they have, and it would 100%, in my opinion, make the game better. So I set up a new Unity project, and to see just how long it would take me, I made it all from scratch. So I waited for Unity to load, and then once it loaded, got this playing and got my player moving. After I got my player moving, I decided we need some 3D models, some visuals. So I went online to see if I could find some Among Us 3D models, and turns out there's a ton of them. Also turns out it's not that hard to make a bean with a cube-like jetpack on the back of it. But then I realized, if I was going to make a multiplayer version just of a game, just to make a point, that makes 0 sense and is going to take way too long. So I decided just to make a single-player little test of interactions that they could add to make the game 10 times more fun. So I went searching for some models and ended up finding a whole 3D map of the Skeld, basically the map that they're using as well, and figured I might as well import that into the scene just for some visuals. After I spent way too long adding materials to each one of those objects, I set out on finding the tasks I wanted to recreate. This first one here is a little hand pump. You can see no hands on it. basically you just grab it or point at it and wave your hand up and down really fast. So I figured I could make that relatively quick. And the second task after this hand pump here would be some buttons. So I modeled up a quick hand pump with basically just a bunch of cylinders. Just attached a configurable joint to it with limits, and there we go. 10 times better interaction than Among Us VR has, and took me 10 seconds to do. Now, why don't they have this in the game? Do they think it's going to be too difficult for players, especially with their demographic? I don't think so. I think it's pure just out of laziness and missing the point of what makes a fun VR game these days. They completely had the power to have hands like these that are fully interactive, and had the power to make physics-based objects client-side that would make every interaction more fun, but instead they opted to not even display the hand or make hand poses when you grab onto a thing, because that would take too long. They just had the hand disappear and have your controller offsets move the object up and down really fast. And that, there just is no substance to that. I think they had so much opportunity to make a really good VR game, but with all the issues it has and all the missing features, just stick to the VR chat version. It's free. Thanks for watching. I hope my point came across there. I tried a new mic as well since last time. I actually have the Quest strapped to my face right now as I'm recording this. The mic quality is better than what I had before. But if you have any comments, want to start a discussion, leave them down below. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear you all tell me wrong. It's a great discussion. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one. This is editor Tristan here. I do actually realize that the buttons are physically interactable with your hands as well by just pushing them. However, they're also able to be pressed with the UI indicator, and the collisions are a little weird if you're watching the clip back. A little janky in a way, relating back to the whole 2017 VR interaction kind of thing. I do realize they do have some physical interaction within the game. The fact that they don't have it for every single object, an example of which is the hand pump, is just a refinement of how they just skipped on certain things just to basically get the game out the door and get people buying it, right? Keep that in mind when you're making your comments about this, and I do realize that it's not the strongest of points, but definitely still something to think about.